YouTube. So before I start, I just wanted to preface this by saying I'm going to talk a little bit from the perspective of privilege in this video, what it means to get certain cards when you are privileged, and specifically as a white person. And so if you are a person of color, you're welcome to watch this video, but also welcome to skip it and take space and care for yourself, since I'm going to be like processing through, talking through some things about privilege that you might just want to not bother with, which I understand. So that said, what we're talking about today, so I'm calling this, it's hashtag Emperor Year Problems. It is collectively an Emperor Year, and so I'm thinking about the idea of taking up space, the concept of everybody's birthright to take up space. I'm thinking about other cards as well, like the King of Wands is one for me, being all about like kind of trailblazing. The King of Swords can also come up here, like telling your story, being really firm in your voice so you have something to say. Sometimes as well, the Seven of Wands can come up here. These are cards that to me are about taking up space, speaking your truth, being bold, being shining bright. When I get these cards, which I have a fair amount in the last year especially, I feel kind of uncomfortable because, I used to have a very public, I still have a clearly public life, but I used to have a very, like, putting myself out there as an expert, public speaking. I had a blog for 10 years that was pretty popular. I ran a hashtag on Twitter, like, did a lot of stuff, and made a choice to step back from that because for a long time the way I approached my position of privilege and having those roles was, well, this is a platform to like invite other white folks to think about privilege, like to be able to bring up whether it's land acknowledgement or talking about genocide, genocidal roots of the United States, whether it's talking about Black, Indigenous people of color being excluded in a lot of queer communities. Like my initial take was I could have talks on topics that were unrelated and pull that stuff in and make people think. And I don't think that perspective is wrong necessarily, but I made a choice to kind of step back from that a little bit, particularly to step back from kind of claiming myself as an expert, from using the tools of white supremacist culture in a way that it felt like, although you might be able to create change from the inside, that it just felt uncomfortable to use that kind of bullshittery that white men do, and that often white people who are not men are encouraged to, like, take up space, claim your power, claim yourself as an expert. Like, I went to feminist media trainings and they would be like, say that you're an expert in this because, a man wouldn't hesitate to. And in a way that's okay, that message makes sense, but it's also, I'm going to be believed because I'm white in that. And so it felt weird to me to use that to do speaking, especially where I might be paid, and especially if that was a spot that could have been given to a person of color. And so I made this choice to step back. And so, I obviously still have a public platform, but I try, and tell me if I'm not doing well, but I try not to frame myself as an expert, but to rather frame these videos as, a conversation, an engagement, me thinking through different things. And while I might give advice or like how to or tips from my life, I try to frame that as just one person's personal experience. So whenever a teacher or a coach, or like I'm listening to a podcast and somebody is saying, hey, like take up space, like put yourself out there, use your talents, that feels uncomfortable to me. And the same thing when I pull the cards, I'm like, okay, but I don't want to shine brighter. I actually feel like I should like rein it in. I should like not hide exactly, but just keep things a little more like tucked away, a little more interpersonal relationships, not big stage. And so I sometimes struggle to be like, what is an emperor year for me? Like, what does taking up space finding my like soul purpose or whatever, you know, if I get messages that should be big and loud, how does that relate to being a person with a lot of privilege? To be clear, by the way, I'm not in any way asking for ally cookies, and you know, I'm not asking for, I'm not welcoming comments that are like, you know, but you're doing great, you know, you're like whatever. That's not the point of this. I'm curious how others work through this invitation to take up space or to shine brighter or to speak your truth when you are on one or more axes a person who is privileged. How do you balance that, the value and the desire to not take up too much space, to make room for others, to realize that your truth has probably been told 9 million times already? How do you balance that when you get an invitation that feels like the universe or what have you is telling you to be more bold and to be more out there? There's not an answer to this. I realize there's no one answer, but I am curious to know some answers. So, like, have you engaged with this? How does it feel? If you do have, you know, particular areas of privilege, if you are a person of color or somebody who otherwise is, you know, heavily marginalized, and you're still watching this video, then I'd also love to hear, you know, if you have the capacity and desire to do so, I would love to hear in the comments your thoughts as well on how your reaction to this is, and like how you would feel about somebody who is more privileged than you getting this message, and how you would want them to react to it. Although, of course, there's no obligation to do so. So let me know what you think, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, so that you can see updates on this channel twice a week.